Here we go. The college football playoff is upon us. Quarterfinal round begins tonight. We're going to do big number, big question on each of these games. We start with the Rose Bowl. Alabama is a touchdown underdog against Indiana, which is great news for Coach Kalen DeBoer. He's 10-4 as an underdog in his career, best record by any coach in FBS who's been an underdog at least 10 times since 1978. 3 and 1 at Bama during that time, including a win in the first round of this tournament against Oklahoma. And so, as we have Jordan and Joey and Josh Pate, the commissioner of college football, joins us as well. Jordan, I'll start with you. Give me the blueprint. How does Kalen DeBoer, how does Alabama pull off what would be a sizable upset tomorrow in the Rose Bowl?
Well, they have to be really creative on offense. Ryan Grubb has to have a fantastic plan to get the ball out of Ty Simpson's hand, because they didn't really improve that aspect against Oklahoma. A little bit fluky how they won that game. Ty still had a ton of pressure on him. He did make some big plays, but the ball needs to come out quickly. Josh Cuevas, healthier, their tight end, needs to get a lot of touches in this game. Jam Miller out of the backfield needs to get a lot of touches. They need to find creative ways to keep Ty Simpson clean, because he's their entire offense. They're not going to run the football. Let's not pretend like they're going to suddenly find a run game. It's not going to happen. It's all about keeping Ty Simpson upright.
We mentioned, Josh, the numbers on Kalen DeBoer as an underdog are very good. What's at stake for him in this game? Does he need to win this game to silence any of the doubters that still exist down there in Alabama?
I agree. I would say if there are doubters, however big the pocket of doubters are, it doesn't sound like those are the types of people that one singular win would silence. So I would say for the vast majority of people, even amongst Alabama folks, I mean, no one's happy with a loss, but I don't think he needs anything. I think what needs to happen is, sort of the rumors circulating around that program about how they're as healthy as they've been since fall camp, what Jordan just said, the potential that you have, the precision you can play with. You showed it against Georgia on the road earlier this year. If that record Kalen DeBoer has in big games is to be believed, it's because his teams play the best in the biggest moments. So that's what he, needs to do here, because what he stands to lose is an opportunity to play for a championship, and they don't come along very often. So I think that's what he stands to lose, more so than trying to silence any doubt that's out there.
How about the Indiana of it all? Joey, you were there in Los Angeles. You're a Big Ten guy. I'm a Big Ten guy. There is something about playing in the Rose Bowl as a Big Ten school, whether it's in the playoff or not. And obviously for Indiana, with almost no significant history in the sport, now all of a sudden to be the #1 team in the country going into this tournament. How do you expect them to handle what is a very different role for this program?
They've had an amazing 2-year run under Coach Cignetti, and last year sort of felt like, okay, pretty good football team here. This season feels different for Indiana. The ability to go on the road and beat Oregon, the ability to make the plays at the end of the game to beat Penn State, the ability to win the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State, which was #1 in the country at that time. This Indiana team feels a little different. Mendoza winning the Heisman Trophy. They're excited to be here. I've been here for a couple days now. All I see is Indiana fans all around me. And so I know that this team appreciates this moment. Now can they take this next step? They'll be favored in this game. And this is a place that Indiana just hasn't been in a situation. Think about it. Indiana is favored in a game against Alabama. When in the heck did we think we would see that happen in the world? And so I know they appreciate this, but this is a different Indiana team. They've been here. They've been in big moments. I expect them to play well.
Yeah, Indiana in the tournament summons up memories of Bob Knight, not of anything else. So we'll see how they're able to handle this situation. They've been the best team in the country all year long. We'll see if they can prove it tomorrow. Next big number, big question is tonight's game, Miami and Ohio State. Carson Beck, 14-3 in his career against ranked opponents, 5-0 while at the U. His 14-3 record is the 3rd best by any quarterback in the last 20 years. He trails only Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. So obviously very good company that he keeps. Joey, how much of a factor do you think Carson Beck's experience, particularly big game experience, is in tonight's matchup with Ohio State?
So hard to tell with Carson Beck. We've just seen him be a really good quarterback, but we've also seen him not be so great. In their 2 losses, Jordan mentioned earlier, he had 6 turnovers in those games. The key is taking care of the football, but I think in this game, it's going to be not just taking care of the football, but he's going to have to make some plays. The 100 yards that he had passing to beat Texas A&M, that's not going to work against Ohio State. The one thing he did is he took care of the football. But you can also be too careful. He's going to have to make some plays throwing the ball to beat Ohio State.
Josh, we didn't have you as we were talking about this game a little bit earlier. There's a feeling that I've had from a lot of people here that the fans at Miami, maybe the players and the team feel disrespected. They're almost a double-digit underdog. What is your sense of this game?
Well, go prove the point spread wrong then. I mean, there's a reason it is what it is, and it hadn't moved a whole lot during the week, by the way, Greeny. So underdogs win games all the time. But what Joey said there's interesting, because if this was a rookie quarterback, a freshman quarterback, it would make sense for us to be saying, man, we just don't know. But Joey's right. But he's talking about a guy who's been around, and we're still saying that about him. Man, you just never know. But that means there's a glass half empty version of this game, and there's a glass half full version of this game. I'm going to choose to believe something here. I'm going to choose to believe that that stat we just showed is valid, and I'm going to choose to believe that there is still some big game magic, or at least some big game juice in Carson Beck. I will tell you this. I was at that game, the Miami A&M game. The wind was an insane factor in that game. And when Miami realized their defense was doing what it was doing, I just think they refused to put the ball in the air a whole lot. So, I mean, we got 72 and calm winds in Jerry World later tonight. They cannot hide him in this game. If Miami wins this game, if it's close in the fourth quarter, it's got to be because of Carson Beck, not in spite of him.
And I'm looking at the screen. Jordan, I'm seeing a U under your name. Quickly, why do you like them to pull off the upset tonight?
Well, I think because this version of Carson Beck that we've seen the last 5 games has shown the experience of protecting the football, making smart decisions, and that has to be the Carson Beck that we see against Ohio State. And to Josh Pate's point, I was at that game. It was really, really windy. It affected both quarterbacks throwing the football, and I agree. They realized the defense was playing well and kind of took their foot off the gas. I don't think that'll be the case. I think they trust Carson Beck, and I think they trust this defense with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor to get after the rookie quarterback in Julian Sayin, who's in this big moment for the first time after a loss against Indiana in his first real big moment. So that's why I like Miami.
All right, so one more I want to do here. One more big number, big question. As we dive into Oregon, Texas Tech, which will be the early game tomorrow, the Red Raiders have just been ridiculously dominant. They have 12 20-point wins this season. That's the second most in a single season dating back to 1936. Only 2018 Clemson had more. That team won the national championship. But for those who are not aware, Paul Feinbaum had an interesting and excellent explanation of how this roster was put together.
Remember, Texas Tech is the team that one man, Cody Campbell, built. He's a billionaire, he's an oil tycoon, and he spent a fortune. And Texas Tech came out of the darkness of nowhere to being one of the best teams in the country, Greeny. That's why people need to pay attention to them.
And what that makes me think about, and Josh, I come to you because, again, you're the commissioner of this whole sport, is this the blueprint? I mean, Texas Tech going from seemingly nowhere to now seemingly everywhere. You get one person or a few people and a ton of money together in a transfer portal, and all of a sudden, here you are, one of these dominant seasons. Is this what college football is now and going forward?
It's a window. It is what college football offers you the ability or opportunity to do in this window. But as far as the blueprint, no, this is not and never will be the blueprint for building a contender. The difference is, like, if you think in terms of building codes, you would build a 3-story house different in Athens, Georgia, than you would in Lubbock, Texas, for a million different factors in play. In college football, no one in Lubbock, Texas is ignorant enough to think, oh, I'm just going to go out recruit the guys in Columbus, Ohio, or the guys in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. What you can do, though, is you can use current structure that's afforded you, and you can just go do what Texas Tech did. But that's only half the equation. Buying the players is half the equation. What shocked me the most is not that they were able to do it. There's a lot of money in Lubbock. To bring those guys in and to have it gel into a real high level, like culture-based functional team this year, that's been the magic trick. Because the fallacy is, oh, all you got to do is go buy players. There are a lot of places with good players that just got coaches fired this year. LSU's one of them, by the way. You don't think they spent in the portal? And so Texas Tech did what they did, but then Joey McGuire swore to me in spring, I think you'll be really surprised with how we put this roster together at what the team looks like this fall. And he was right about that.
Joey, quick take on this. You've been covering the sport forever. You played the sport at the very highest level. What's your take on this?
I think every year we see the same thing. Josh had mentioned, you see a lot of people spend a lot of money. And at the end of the day, only one team's going to win it all, and that means the rest of them are upset. How many times can you keep running this back? How many times are people willing to jump in and say, hey, let's spend this kind of money, let's go get this kind of roster? Because you're right. You look at the other teams out there, teams that didn't get in the playoffs, they spent just as much money. And so we see it work out. We see it work out for Ohio State last season. We all talked about how much money they spent. They won a national championship. Everybody else that spent that money was upset that they spent the money and didn't get the win. So it'll be interesting to see how many times you can go find a billionaire that's willing to run this back. If you get to the end and you're not that team standing with the national championship, now how do you feel about that money? Because half your roster's leaving after that, and someone else is going to pay them.
And Jordan, final word from you, Jordan Rogers.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech definitely was able to buy a roster that has 10 or 15 guys that are as good as anybody in the country. The problem is the teams that sustain success and compete for national championships year in and year out have better top 40 players on their roster than any other. And to do that, you have to recruit high school. You have to develop physicality and size. And I think that's the biggest difference you're going to see in this playoff with Texas Tech is the size and physicality and depth of that at the line of scrimmage. That is the difference with the Ohio States, with the Georgias, with the Oregon that they're going to face. That to me is the difference. You can build guys that can contend and have talent and be a flash in a pan, but sustaining that requires a different approach.
Big picture and